Assalamu alaikum. Today we will be starting this lecture off by the first chapter, which is cell biology. What is a cell? A cell is the basic structure and functional unit of life. Now, we have three types of organisms: a unicellular organism, such as bacteria; a multicellular organism, such as humans, animals; and acellular organisms. Acellular organisms are viruses. Now, I'm just for your interest, I'm telling you that unicellular organisms such as bacteria are called prokaryotes and multicellular organisms are called eukaryotes. So now these are the common things which are present in all three organisms: a cell membrane, a cytoplasm, and a nucleus. The cell membrane is a partially permeable membrane which does not allow large substances to transport. Cytoplasm has nutrients are basically necessary for the metabolic reactions to continue. Now, the thing about this book is that you need to know that the words which are written in bold are very important to include in your answers. The nucleus. The nucleus has genes in it which store all the information which is required for the daily activity of the cell. Now, if you come about the differences between an animal cell and a plant cell, which is very important regarding examination point of view, the nucleus in a plant cell is located in the periphery, while the nucleus in an animal cell is in the center. We will be looking into such questions when we do the past papers. Now, further delving on the differences, the plant cell has basically a cell wall. This is the most important difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. The cell wall is made up of cellulose, and the cell wall provides the plant cell rigidity. It Now I will be trying to interlink the concepts. I hope that you have, since you've studied more of the syllabus, I will be trying to improve your concepts. Now you need to know that only plant cell contains cellulose. Other organisms, such as fungi, have cell wall containing of chitin, which is basically a protein, while animal cells don't have cellulose. Now, what is the function of the cell wall? The cell wall provides rigidity to it. If you place a plant cell in water by osmosis, when water goes into the plant cell, it will prevent it from the cell wall will apply opposite pressure onto the cell and it would prevent it from bursting, unlike animal cell which are hemolyzed. Now, the cell sap contains all the basically the metabolic nutrients, calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium, which are responsible for providing nutrients to the plant cell. The chloroplast. Now, the difference between plant cell and animal cell is the chloroplast. The chloroplast will help the plant cell in the process of photosynthesis, by which they make their own energy. For chloroplast to function, you know that there's a pigment called chlorophyll, and plant cells only carry out photosynthesis in the presence of light. Now here, once again, the different main differences between plant and animal cells have been reiterated, which I talked to you before, that we'll be more looking onto the differences. The differences are that the animal cell does not have a cell sap vacuole, does not have a cell wall, it doesn't have chloroplast since humans cannot make their own food. Also, in plant cell, after photosynthesis, they store energy in the form of starch. However, we humans, when we obtain energy from other living beings by, for example, humans ingest meat, the energy is stored in the form of glycogen. This is just the ATP alternative to practical paper, which we will be studying later about. For now, our focus will be on the theory. Now we will be looking on the specialized cells in the plant cell, animal cell. This is the root hair cell. Now, the root hair cell is in the plant. It works by two important processes, namely osmosis and active transport. So, I hope that you have a pretty basic understanding of the three main concepts: osmosis, diffusion, and active transport. What is osmosis? Osmosis is the movement of water molecules, from an area of high water potential to an area of low water potential along the concentration gradient. In diffusion, it's just not about water molecules, it's about particles. And basically, the osmosis and diffusion are similar processes which do not require energy. they all move along the concentration gradient. For example, if I were to give you an example about diffusion, you could imagine that when you spray perfume at a region, after 5 to 10 minutes, the scent of the perfume will be also at the corner of the room. So the particles have diffused to the corner of the room. The third concept is active transport. Active transport applies energy, it requires energy since it is against the concentration gradient. And the definition for active transport is that the movement of particles from an area where they're low concentration to an area of higher concentration against the concentration gradient. All these words which I'm using, they are their definitions, and they are necessary in the examination. So now we need to know that what is the function of the root hair cell. The root hair cell involves two processes, osmosis and active transport. It is since it absorbs water. Water is Whenever water comes, there's only one process, it's osmosis. And when and since mineral ions are involved, it involves the process of active transport. So what does a root hair cell do? Here is a figure of a root hair cell. So when it goes into the soil, here are the soil particles. And you need to know that the thing is why it uses active transport is that the concentration of nutrients are low inside the cell and are low outside the cell and high inside the cell. So it uses an active transport to energy for the uptake of mineral ions against the concentration gradient from where they're in low concentration to where they're in high concentration. Now, another interlinking concept is that to use this process of active transport, they require oxygen. I hope you know that the mitochondria are the region where ATP is produced in plant cells. So, in order to use ATP, they require oxygen. The thing which comes in the exam is that how root hair cells have the adaptation to carry out active transport. And the answer to this is that they have increased the surface area of the cells. This by increasing the surface area of the cells, there is a greater surface area available for the uptake of water ions. Now, this is pretty basic stuff. In plant cells, what are xylem vessels? Xylem vessels are basically to conduct water and ions from the roots to the stem of the plants. They help to provide this support for the aerial parts of the plant. So the main function of xylem vessels is basically just to provide support. The function of support is more important. Since I'll just in our videos will talk about the important concepts more. So I'll just briefly cover this part. These are cut sections of plant cells. You need to know that these are xylem vessels, and in these vessels, in many past papers, similar questions have been asked in which the xylem has been covered in green and the phloem has been covered in white. Now what are our red blood cells? Red blood cells are present in animals and they help to carry out oxygen throughout the body. They have the pigment hemoglobin. Red blood cells are basically in a have a circular biconcave shape, which enables them to have a larger surface area. By having a larger surface area, they can efficiently carry out the diffusion of oxygen between our blood and red blood cells. Now you need to know that the red blood cells are flexible and they can be easily pushed through many capillaries. Iron is a major thing in red blood cells. Now, hemoglobin. I'll just try to interlink it so you have a clinical aspect of why hemoglobin is important in our body. Without hemoglobin, humans will develop anemia in the body. Anemia is due to deficiency of hemoglobin. The normal